In 1675, King Charles II of England tried to ban coffee houses, not because they served bad coffee, because they were too dangerous. Men from every class, merchants, lawyers, scientists, politicians, were sitting together for hours, reading pamphlets, arguing about government, and organizing ideas that made kings deeply uncomfortable. For the price of a penny, any man could walk in, get a cup of coffee, and join a conversation that could change the world. The king failed. The coffee houses stayed open, and the world was never the same. But coffee's story does not start in England. It does not start in a coffee house. It does not even start with a cup. It starts with a goat. Around 850 AD, in the highland forests of Ethiopia, a goat herder named Kaldi noticed something strange. His goats had eaten the bright red berries off a particular tree and refused to sleep that night. They were dancing, restless, energized in a way he had never seen before. Kaldi brought the berries to a nearby monastery. The monks boiled them into a drink and stayed awake through their evening prayers for the first time in years. Word spread. This is almost certainly a legend, but it points to something real. Coffee was first discovered in the ancient forests of Ethiopia, in the region still called Kaffa today, the region most historians believe gave coffee its name. For centuries, Ethiopian tribes consumed coffee not as a drink, but as food. They crushed the beans with animal fat, rolled them into small balls, and carried them on long journeys for sustained energy. There was no brewing, no roasting, no cup. Just raw caffeine wrapped in fat, eaten like a meal. Coffee as a drink was born somewhere else entirely. By around 1000 AD, Arab traders had carried coffee beans across the Red Sea into Yemen. And it was there, on the Arabian Peninsula, that everything changed. Sufi monks in Yemen began brewing a drink from the beans to stay awake during long nights of prayer and meditation. They called it kawa, a word that originally meant wine, because coffee gave them something wine could not: clarity, focus, a sharpened mind instead of a dulled one. Yemen jealously guarded this discovery. For nearly 300 years, the port city of Mocha held a near-total monopoly on the global coffee trade. Yemeni merchants roasted or boiled every bean before export to prevent germination. No living plant was allowed to leave the peninsula. Coffee was too valuable to share. The Ottoman Empire changed that. When the Ottomans conquered Yemen in 1536, they inherited the coffee trade and carried it north into Constantinople, Cairo, and Mecca. And then something happened that no empire could have predicted. The coffee house was born. The first coffee houses opened in Constantinople in the 1550s. Within a decade, there were hundreds of them across the Ottoman Empire. They were called kahvekhana, houses of coffee, and they became something entirely new in human civilization. A public space where men gathered not to worship, not to trade, not to drink alcohol, but simply to think and talk. Chess was played there. Poetry was read there. Music was performed there. Business deals were struck there. Political ideas were born there. Ottoman authorities were terrified. Coffee was banned 3 times in the empire between 1500 and 1600. Each time, the bans failed completely. People loved coffee too much to give it up, and officials loved the tax revenue too much to stop it. Sound familiar? Power tries to suppress the thing it cannot control. The thing survives anyway. Coffee reached Europe in the early 1600s, and it arrived like a quiet revolution. The first European coffee house opened in Venice in 1645. Oxford got one in 1650. London got its first in 1652, opened by a man named Pasquale Rossi, a Greek immigrant who had learned to love the drink in Constantinople. Within 30 years, London had over 300 coffee houses. By 1700, there were more than 2,000. Think about what Europe looked like before. Coffee. The water was unsafe to drink in most cities, so people drank beer and ale from morning to night. Weak by modern standards, but enough to keep the population in a permanent state of mild intoxication from breakfast until bedtime. Coffee changed that completely. Here was a drink that sharpened the mind instead of dulling it, that created alertness instead of fog, that could be consumed all day and made you more productive, not less. The result was an intellectual explosion. Lloyd's of London, the insurance giant worth hundreds of billions today, started as a coffee house on Tower Street in 1688. Merchants and ship captains gathered there to share information about shipping routes, cargo, and risk. The coffee house became a marketplace of information, and that information became a business. The London Stock Exchange grew out of Jonathan's Coffee House, where traders posted stock prices on the walls and made deals over their cups. The Royal Society, one of the oldest and most prestigious scientific institutions in the world, held early meetings in coffee houses. Robert Hooke, Christopher Wren, Isaac Newton, and other giants of the scientific revolution sat in the same rooms, drank the same bitter drink, and rewrote our understanding of the physical world. These were not coincidences. Coffee created the conditions. It kept men awake. It kept them talking. It kept them sharp enough to have the conversations that built the modern world. Coffee houses were called penny universities because for 1 penny, the price of admission and a cup, any man could enter and receive an education that no formal institution offered. Not in lectures or textbooks, but in argument, debate, and the free exchange of ideas across class lines. The Enlightenment did not happen in royal courts. It happened in coffee houses. But Europe had a problem. Coffee plants grew in Yemen and Ethiopia. They could not grow in England or France or the Netherlands. And the Ottoman Empire controlled the supply chain completely. European powers did what they always did when they wanted something they could not produce themselves. They stole it. In 1616, a Dutch trader named Peter van der Broek smuggled live coffee plants out of Mocha Harbor, hidden beneath regular cargo. He brought them to Amsterdam, where Dutch botanists spent decades learning to cultivate them. By the 1690s, the Dutch had established coffee plantations in Java, in what is now Indonesia, and broken the Ottoman monopoly completely. Coffee had escaped. The French followed. In 1714, the mayor of Amsterdam gifted a single coffee plant to King Louis XIV of France. It was kept under guard in the Royal Botanical Garden in Paris. A French naval officer named Gabriel de Clou became obsessed with getting that plant to the French colonies in the Caribbean. He succeeded by 1720, smuggling a cutting aboard a ship to Martinique. The journey was brutal. The ship was attacked by pirates. A rival officer tried to destroy the plant out of jealousy. Fresh water ran desperately short during the crossing, and de Clou shared his own water ration with the cutting to keep it alive. That single plant survived, and within 50 years, the island of Martinique had over 18 million coffee trees descended from it. The Caribbean became a coffee factory, and France became one of the wealthiest colonial powers in the world on the back of that one stolen cutting. The same pattern emerged as with sugar. Coffee plantations needed enormous labor and tropical heat. The same brutal calculus applied. Enslaved Africans were brought to work the fields of Martinique, Haiti, and Cuba. The same ships that carried sugar sometimes carried coffee on the return journey. The same colonial machinery ground forward. Coffee's wealth was also built on chains. In the American colonies, coffee found its most dramatic political moment. Before 1773, Americans drank tea, British tea, and they paid British taxes on every cup on the night of December 16th. 1773, American colonists threw 342 chests of British tea into Boston Harbor in protest of taxation without representation. The Boston Tea Party made drinking tea an act of political submission. Almost overnight, coffee became the patriotic drink of the American colonies. John Adams wrote to his wife Abigail that he was learning to drink coffee out of principle, even though he found the taste disagreeable at first. Thomas Jefferson called coffee the favorite drink of the civilized world. The United States was born over coffee, and it has been drinking it ever since. By the 19th century, coffee was fueling industrial civilization on both sides of the Atlantic. Factory workers who could not afford alcohol or elaborate meals drank coffee on their breaks. It was cheap, it was fast, and it kept them moving through 12-hour shifts in ways their employers appreciated. Brazil entered the picture and changed the scale of everything. By 1850, Brazil was producing more than half the world's coffee. By 1900, it was producing over 3/4. The Amazon basin and the highlands of Minas Gerais became an endless carpet of coffee trees. And again, this production was built on enslaved labor until abolition came to Brazil in 1888, the last country in the Western Hemisphere to ban slavery. Coffee then did something no one expected. It got faster. In 1901, a Japanese-American inventor named Satoru Kato developed the first commercial instant coffee. In 1938, Nestlé introduced Nescafé, a shelf-stable soluble coffee developed at the request of the Brazilian government, which was drowning in coffee surpluses it could not sell. Nescafé became the most successful new product Nestlé had ever launched. World War II accelerated everything. The U.S. military included instant coffee in every soldier's ration kit. American soldiers consumed it by the millions of cups across Europe and the Pacific. Coffee was now a tool of the soldiers fighting it. When those soldiers came home, they brought the coffee habit with them. The post-war American suburbs ran on percolated coffee. Office culture ran on it. The 9-to-5 economy was structured around the coffee break, which became a formalized institution in American workplaces in the 1950s. And then Seattle changed everything again. In 1971, 3 academics who loved quality coffee opened a small roasting shop in Seattle's Pike Place market. They called it Starbucks. For its first decade, it sold only beans and equipment, not brewed coffee. In 1983, one of the partners, Howard Schultz, traveled to Italy and walked into a Milan espresso bar. He watched the barista craft each drink with the care of an artisan. He watched strangers become regulars. He watched a cup of coffee become a ritual, a community, a third place between home and work. He came back to America and rebuilt Starbucks around that idea. By 2024, Starbucks operates more than 35,000 locations across 80 countries. A company worth over $100 billion, built on an idea borrowed from a Milanese espresso bar, which was itself descended from an Ottoman coffee house, which was descended from a Yemeni monastery, which was descended from an Ethiopian goat herder who noticed his animals would not sleep. Today, coffee is the second most traded commodity on Earth, behind only crude oil. Over 2.25 billion cups are consumed every single day worldwide. The global coffee industry is worth over $460 billion and growing. Ethiopia, the country where it all began, remains one of the top 5 coffee producers in the world. Farmers in the same highland forests where Chaldees goats once danced are still harvesting the same species of plant, Coffea arabica, that started this entire story. The drink that once kept monks awake through prayer now keeps surgeons awake through operations. It wakes up artists, writers, coders, and teachers. It sits at the center of first dates, business meetings, political arguments, and quiet mornings when the rest of the world is still dark. It has fueled revolutions. It has funded empires. It has built stock exchanges, insurance companies, and scientific institutions. It carried colonialism in its cargo holds and liberation in its coffee houses. A berry discovered by a goat in an Ethiopian forest became the engine of the modern world. And there is a very good chance you have a cup of it sitting next to you right now. If this story surprised you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories behind the things you use every day.